Welcome to HipMojo, show 23. I'm your host, Ashkan Karbas-Rushan. CT, you look quite different.
Yes, I'm Rebecca Brayton, and I'm filling in for the missing in action CT Moore.
I'm sure he's doing fine, or elsewise he's in a cave somewhere. All right, so let's get started. First of all, I think most of our audience probably knows you better than they know me, so you need no introduction. I'm just going to ask you this week, what was the most interesting segment you shot?
Well, we were at the Montreal International Auto Show, and I know this was a gimmick by Ford, but they had like a C-3PO robot kind of introducing their new unveilings for Canada, and I have to be honest, I was caught in by the hype.
Nice. So you mentioned it was the Montreal Auto Show. We've been at the Detroit Auto Show, and we have footage on the site from the Frankfurt Auto Show and all that, but we do film a lot out of Montreal, and you do a great job of producing, hosting, and all that. How challenging is it, because we are a global media company, how challenging is it for you to produce things out of Montreal, but then repackage them for a global audience?
In terms of the repackaging, it's not all that difficult. It's more the language issue, which is an obvious obstacle that we encounter every day. It's sometimes more difficult to find the local representative who speaks fluent and perfect English. However, at these auto shows, it's a lot easier. I mean, they fly people in and
from Toronto or from like Detroit or
probably they're Canadian representatives. Okay. So I mean, it's definitely a lot easier to do it at the auto show.
Okay, good stuff. All right, let's get started. What's the first question?
Question number one. 2 weeks ago, StreamingMedia.com published an interview that you did with them when you were in LA to moderate a panel, and the title was WatchMojo Wins with Slow and Steady Online Video Growth, and with the subtitle, while it might not be the biggest video site, WatchMojo.com doesn't answer to VCs, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, yeah.
There's more. Then you turn around and publish an article on TechCrunch called Why Bootstrapping is Overrated. So the question is, which one is it? Is it better to be self-funded or to raise VC? I'm
caught red-handed. I'm a hypocrite. No, the idea is, the right answer is it depends. Different strategies for different kinds of companies. Here's what happened. So I'm on the New York Meetup New Tech mailing list, and there was a question about bootstrapping. And there was a lot of good feedback, and instead of writing a long-ass email thread, I thought of writing a series of articles for TechCrunch. Really, it was a three-parter. It's now a four-parter when the next one goes up. And the three articles were Lies Entrepreneurs Tell, Why Salespeople Make for Bad Fundraisers, and Why Bootstrapping is Overrated. What had happened was, when I did that interview with Streaming Media, I was in LA to meet partners we have, potential investors, and I had just done a panel with some VCs, and we were talking about why VCs were basically messing up online video, right? I mean, so how many other video companies out there that produce content aside from WatchMojo?
Oh, I don't know.
How many? Do you think there's a lot or not many?
I feel like there's not that many.
Exactly, and the reason for that is that most of them actually have gone out of business. So the reason why, fresh on my mind, was this notion that VCs are not necessarily nailing video content. So when I spoke, we talked about 10 things. One of the things was the fact that we happen to be self-funded, and they carried that, so I was like, oh my God, do I want to be known as the anti-VC guy, which is not really my position. I just think it makes sense sometimes to raise VC or not. So part of it was just to sort of balance. I think if you're going to build a business, you're going to build a business despite your source of capital. It's not because of it. But I've touched on this broader issue of when you're a writer and a CEO. To be perfectly honest, I was meeting with an investor this week, and he said, you write these articles, it's like, what's the deal? He's like, are you pissed at us, the investment community? And I said, no. I go, it's not like you're dealing with a software or tech entrepreneur. I'm a media entrepreneur. We publish content. It's like Michael Arrington. He was a content entrepreneur. Hugh Hefner, content entrepreneur. Content entrepreneurs are a bit crazy. Even just to finish off on this first point, when I was writing The Young Pro at Ask Men, as much as I tried to not talk about my experiences at the company, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't anything going on. So the right answer for generally entrepreneurs is sometimes it makes sense to raise VC, sometimes it makes sense to bootstrap, but it's not like it's either or. It depends, basically. So I'm trying not to be a hypocrite. I do see both sides of the argument.
So you can have it both ways. So question number 2 is, what does manufacturing an audience mean?
Okay, so this is something I've been giving a lot of thoughts to. If you consider that right now there's this big wave of technology in media, right? So it started not just with the internet, it started with publishing and all that. The main thing that is crazy right now is real media companies that have a real audience whether it's a magazine, whether it's a TV company, whether it's an internet company that publishes content, they're basically being traded at a discount. Whereas the technology companies that through ad serving or data or behavioral targeting, who are able to reach audiences in a blind manner and manufacture the audience, which basically means it's a fake audience. There's no common bond apart from demographics, which is we could debate whether or not it's legit or not. Most of those companies are being traded at a premium. So I wrote an article on Media Post just touching on this sort of very bizarro world backwards reality that if you happen to be a company that has 10 million users visit your site, and they engage with your brand, and they engage with your content, you're being actually right now punished by the markets. And the companies that are being rewarded are a lot of these technology companies that target audiences randomly across the web. But okay, maybe you could plead that, well, these were all people who have done this over the last 30 days and that, but they're actually very heterogeneous. They're not really, it's not really a community. So the idea was like, you can manufacture your audience, but at some point it's going to come back and haunt you. You're better off as a media and a publisher building a real audience around your content and your brand. And this is something we've done. In the last year, we've hired people to just manage marketing and social media. Now, I don't know, frankly, though, if there's going to be, at some point, a regression to the mean where companies that have a real audience are going to be rewarded. It could be that, no, like the robots take over the world, and that's just the way the future is going to be.
So what you're saying is you want a community of people who are engaged with each other and with the videos?
Yeah, I mean, in our case, it's videos. But I think, like, if, I was talking to the CEO of a big New York-based company, and he said it. He goes, the reason why we do very well and we could sell, he goes, one of my VCs says, are you guys kicking ass and doing so much revenue because you have, like, behavioral targeting? And he's like, no. He's like, we are doing really well and able to get Nike and Coca-Cola to pay premiums for advertising because it's a real community. It's people that come and engage with the articles and read the articles and view the slideshows. He's like, because there's a real audience there, there's a real reaction. Whereas, to put it bluntly, and then we can move on to the next thing, what's happening when you manufacture an audience, it's like bundling a bunch of crappy mortgages, putting them together and saying this is a AAA rated high quality asset, where we saw it's anything but. But that's just the way things are, and I don't know if that's going to change or not.
Okay, question number 3. You wrote an article for a Montreal tech blog, and it was called, You Can't Cut Your Way to a $1 billion Business. So if you could tell us what you meant, and then maybe talk a bit about the Montreal startup and tech scene.
Sure, so I'm actually quite proud of this article because I managed in this rant to just cut across the church, the French establishment, the business community, lawyers, accountants, startups, investors. It was quite a nice accomplishment. Again, the reality is, you can't be vegetable lasagna when you're writing. And I think one of the critiques that some people have given to me about WatchMojo is they go, sometimes your content lacks that oomph. And it's true. Why? Because we have clients that include Yahoo and a magazine and a portal, so we have to somewhat stay neutral for them all to like it. I admit, guilty as charged, Your Honor. So when I write a blog article, everybody's a writer, everybody pontificates, it's like a-holes. Everybody's got one. You have to stand out of the clutter. If I go out there drinking the Kool-Aid, singing Kumbaya, and saying, oh my God, Montreal's done all these great things, nobody's going to read that. Nobody's going to share that. Nobody's going to say, oh my God, here's an opinion, agree or disagree. So it came out, and I basically said, forget Ash, forget WatchMojo. Historically, the most successful Montreal, but you could replace Montreal for Canada, entrepreneurs have basically had to leave this city, state, province, and country to become successful. Only when they leave and they become successful are they then come back, and then it's like you go from good luck with that business, buddy, to pal, to I've always believed in you, buddy. So it's just like, and I'm just saying it's a shame. Now, what I said was, times have changed. Thankfully, there is a new movement, a new crop of investors who are trying to back entrepreneurs. I'm saying that's very exciting, but I'm basically challenging those investors, saying, forget WatchMojo, forget Ash. The world doesn't owe me anything, doesn't owe anybody anything. The world was here before you entered the world, and it'll be here when you die and leave. But you have a choice to make, which is either you become part of the crusty old establishment that turns their back on a lot of entrepreneurs who, like me, maybe are not going to be so verbose and talk about it, but they're just going to be like forgotten and shut down their businesses. Or you could say, you know what, screw it. We are going to maybe back those entrepreneurs that are a bit rough around the edges, but who have good intentions and who are building the job. And I even, it was sort of a again, when you write something, you'd be lying if you said there's no double ententes. Part of it was a timestamps, that if we WatchMojo get up, turn our backs to the city, and go relocate to New York, nobody should come back and say, oh my God, these guys were sellouts. At the end of the day, Vice was also started in Montreal. It's now based in Brooklyn. It's printing money. They only did that because they left Montreal. All of the most successful companies, Le Cirque du Soleil, they had to get up and leave, and now they're like the greatest export after Celine Dion. The point is, it is a challenge. I'd be lying if it wasn't. But this notion that I'm some bitter, angry person, it's the opposite. I'm generally happy, but if it's not a shtick, and it is a shtick. When you write, you need to have a voice, and that's what it is, and people should have fun with it, and that's it. And the truth hurts at the end of the day. So if some people were offended, maybe there's some truth in what I said.
All right, should I be looking to buy a house elsewhere?
No, everything's fine. We're probably going to stay here. We love the weather here, basically. All that snow is good for your bones. All right, so this was show 23. Next week, we'll see if CT Moore's back or not. I guess we have to send out the GPS to get him out of the cave.